Okay, I'll get going just to try and be mindful of everyone's time. Good evening. My name is Damian Newman. I'm the president of Needham Soccer Club. I want to welcome all of you to the Nestle Coaches Meeting for the fall 2020 season. As I always do when we have any of these coaches meetings, I like to start by thanking all of you for volunteering to coach this season. As I've said many times, Needham Soccer Club and all of our programs could not exist without the continued support of all of our volunteers. So thank you very much, especially this year for stepping up and volunteering. In many ways, the focus of the fall season, we're hoping reflects the club's mission to provide the youth in Needham with physical and social development through the game of soccer. And I think it's more important this year that, getting the kids out there on the field, having a good experience, and having some interaction and some physical activity outside is going to be beneficial for everyone involved. When we were thinking about having the fall season, we wondered how much, whether the drop off, would there be a big drop off, and how much interest there'd be in playing soccer under the current environment. And we're happy to say that the registrations for fall of 2020 are almost right in line with what we've seen over the last few years in the fall. So over 1,500 kids have indicated they want to play soccer, and our goal is to provide them to do that and provide them with a little bit of normalcy as best as we can in a safe and thoughtful environment. So let that be the focus of the fall. There's no trophies that are going to get handed out at the end of the season. We just want to get the kids out and participate in soccer and have fun through this game. So we have a long agenda that's filled with a lot of information that we think is pertinent and important to you, the coaches, under this current environment. It's going to be COVID heavy because it has to be. We have to explain some of the limitations and some of the rules and regulations that we have to abide by for this fall season. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let the folks that do all the hard work for the club, Mark Miskin is the executive director, Mark Beaumont, who's our administrator and field scheduler, and Matt Murray, who's our director of coaching. They're going to go through the agenda, and we'd like you to remain muted, and questions. If you have questions, please post them to the chat. Mark Beaumont will be monitoring it, and any questions that don't get covered by the three of these gentlemen will be covered at the end, and we'll respond to all of them if we have enough time for questions and answers. Okay, with that, Mark Miskin.
Thanks, Damian, and welcome everybody. And again, thank you for volunteering. As Damian said, it's really important to the club, and especially to the players and the children. So thank you again for you stepping up to be our coaches. I'm going to be a little distracted because I'm admitting people as I'm talking, but also want to be brief, but I want to go over some information that we need to touch base on now, and it's obviously COVID-19 related. The state, the Commonwealth, has come out with guidelines for youth sports, Mass Youth Soccer. Our governing body for the club has a number of guidelines that we have implemented, and Matt's going to go through that with you in a short time. But every club needs a COVID officer. I am Needham Soccer Club's COVID officer, and Matt Murray and Mark Beaumont will be assisting me as assistant COVID officers. We're going to try to work in concert. Matt's going to be obviously heavily on the fields, so he'll be able to answer a lot of questions on the field. Mark and I back in the office and everything can handle emails and texts and phone calls. So anything that you might have that is COVID-19 related, that the three of us, or myself, one of us can answer, please send it our way. Would appreciate it if you copied all three of us when you do that, so we know if one of us is going to answer right away, then the other two know that that's being taken care of. Obviously, a phone call is separate. And then we'll get back to you as soon as we can with hopefully the appropriate answer. Things to be concerned about, obviously, and Matt will get into it, but if somebody shows up that may be feeling sick, or you found out is on your team that is sick, that needs to be reported to us, and then we need to contact the Board of Health. So keep that in mind, but there's guidelines are going to be at your disposal to see, and you'll be able to know what to do. We'll be sending out a very comprehensive, more comprehensive guidance that Matt's going to present tonight. We'll go out to all club members, parents, everybody, referees next week. We're still finalizing some things. We're also just holding off a little bit because updates continue to happen. They've been happening all summer long. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster. But if we're lucky, we'll be able to get everything out towards the beginning of next week. It's also very important that every team have a team COVID coordinator. So the three of us are the club coordinators, but every team needs a team coordinator, COVID coordinator. It could be a parent, but we are strongly urging that it be the assistant coach to every team, especially right off from the get-go, for a couple of reasons. Big part is all you should be getting Safe Soccer certified or Safe Sports certified within the next week, so that you can actually get on the fields. So we need that to happen first and foremost from all of you. But if there's a team a COVID coordinator and it's a parent, that parent also needs to be Safe Soccer certified. So it would probably be easier that an assistant coach be the COVID coordinator, at least in the beginning. And if you're able to find a parent that's more than willing to help, they're going to need to be assertive. And that's the second part, is that we think the assistant coach, more parents will listen to an assistant coach than maybe another parent on the sideline. And again, it could be the opposite, I'm not sure. But that's our thinking, so we'd like for you to do that. We will be reaching out to ask you who that team COVID coordinator is, because we need to document that and keep that available to us. Regarding town fields, right now we don't have any permits. The plan was that we were going to be opening up practices next week. Because permits aren't given to the club yet, we need to hold off. More than likely, we're going to see that we're going to be able to get on the fields on the week of the 14th. Understand that that's one week before the start of the season, but there's really nothing we can do. This is what the town is telling us, so we're going to have to go by that. We won't be giving out any schedules or practice schedules or game schedules for Nessel or NSJ at this point until we're confirmed on what fields we're receiving. Park and Rec has a new director of Park and Rec, and therefore we want to make sure that we are still getting the same fields that we've always had. If we're lucky, because of the situation with the high school and their sports, we might be able to pick up extra time, possibly earlier time, but we won't know that for sure again until we get our permits. So that's why we're holding off on the schedules and everything. So once we get the schedules, we're going to turn it around and we want to get them right out to you as fast as possible. Speaking of the games, starting on the 19th, that is the start of the Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah, 19th and 20th. So that does pose a problem for teams if there are players or coaches that will be participating in the holiday. We followed Bay's guidelines. that is a legitimate reason to postpone, reschedule a game. But in years past, it's been that there weren't any games. But the way they've got the policy now, I think it's helpful to everybody, because if there are no one's participating in the Jewish holiday on Saturday, then the games can be played. In past years, in some instances, the games weren't able to be played because all games were postponed. So please check with your players. Please be respectful. If a player really wants to be there, think twice about playing the game, and maybe think about rescheduling. Talk to your opponents. They might be running into the same situation, and we'll do our best in a tough situation to reschedule your game, because field space and everything will be a little bit limited. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and he's going to take you through the Coaches COVID Toolkit and the Nestle Guidebook for the season, and some website review. So thank you for everyone for, again, attending.
All right, thank you, Mark. Can everybody just see my screen? Quick thumbs up. Can. Hopefully you can. Awesome. Well, thank you again for everybody for agreeing to help us out this fall. I just want to kind of reiterate what Damien was saying and Mark had said, is that all of this work, which has not been the most fun tracking the last few months, it's all been done with the kids in mind. I think you as parents probably see it. I think it's needed now more than ever. And what I mean by that is the safe place for kids to just get together and reconnect, to get some social, emotional, physical development and opportunities. I think throughout this whole process, the kids have really got the short end of the stick through a lot of it. So I've seen it firsthand, taking the fields this summer through a bunch of different clinics and programs and things I was fortunate enough to take place in. And I understand the anxiety surrounding all these updates and trying to figure out what that means for us. But I think the one thing, my big takeaway from this summer was just seeing how happy the kids were to be there. And yes, it looks different. It felt different. It is a bit different, but how much they enjoy the experience and having that opportunity to connect with one another. Again, I think right away, just, proved and made it clear that it was all worth it. So again, just that's kind of the key here, is the connection piece and the reconnecting. I think that's kind of the theme for the season. That's our goal, and trying to do it in as safe a manner as possible. I think we had a lot of really good intentions and a lot of really good ideas in trying to make up for a lost season in the spring, and it's not going to be what we hoped it was going to be. But when you put it all into perspective now, looking back, I think having something and having a season is a lot better than not having the season. I think we just really need to keep all of those things in mind as we work through this and as we work through the season. The big thing here to jump really right into this document to note is, we've said it a million times, everybody's saying it, this pandemic is very fluid. Things are going to change literally. Since last night, we've had to make adjustments. This needs to be reported to everybody. All our coaches, all our parents, all our players need to have access to all of our guidelines. It needs to be reported to Board of Health, Parks and Recs, Mass Youth Soccer. So there's a lot of updates that are coming, and there's a lot of changes that are being made. So this is top of the priority list for us right now, is to keep you updated with the latest changes as they develop. So please, 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 more than ever, stay on top of the communications that come out from the club, that come from our directors. We have great volunteers who, myself and the Marks are working with very closely to decipher all this information and stay on top of all of it. So more than ever, communication is going to be key, and staying connected and having a cooperative effort throughout this whole process. Us helping you helping us is really huge for this summer, or for this fall, excuse me. So getting into the document a little bit, It's going to be on our website. We'll take you through all the resources again, sort of towards the end, to show you the website where you can find everything to just help you reference to later. All our documents are going to have these clickable links right into it. So at any point in time, if you need a reminder of the field guidelines, of the COVID coordinator checklist, the game modifications, you'll be able to go right in. You can see the mouse changes, so you could click right in and it'll bring you right to what you need at any point in time. So we've really done a lot of work to try to make this as user-friendly as possible. The resources page, again, will be on all of our documents. This really just gives you the opportunity to get in contact with any of the club COVID officers that you might need, find the COVID checklist again, and just see all the resources that we're deciphering, that we are going through, and all the different groups that we're kind of following throughout this whole thing, so you can see it for yourself. If you're interested or you need any of those resources. So get into it. Everybody I'm sure is aware of Governor Baker's 4-phase guidelines for reopening the state. We really want to just lay out some definitions and highlight the groups that pertain to youth sports. So when this whole thing started, there wasn't really clear on what pertains to us. And again, I understand you hear one thing and how does that relate to us? So we really want to start by defining some of those groups and some of those things for you right off of the top. And the key here again is the cooperative effort from the club to coaches to parents to players, up and down the ladder. We are now really, taking orders from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Youth. That is in the group that has, working with the governor from the state office, and really is broken up the youth sports and classified them from low risk, moderate, high risk, and all the different levels, and what's allowed to happen at every level. So that is really the group that kind of that works with Matthew Soccer, and we follow both of their guidance, everything going forward. So soccer has been classified as a moderate risk sport. It means we can participate in level 3. That allows us to have our competitions. So that's kind of when that update came, which was really just a few weeks ago. We kind of realized, okay, we do have a green light to have some sort of normal season. And I put air quotes on that because it's not traditional normal, but we were able to get teams created, to create schedules, to have practices, to have games. So that's really the goal here, again, to kind of get back to the basics. And we'll dive into a couple things that really have spearheaded a lot of the decision making, that being contact tracing, and being field limitations and capacity limits. Those are the big ones that are really driving a lot of the decision making that we're having. So having to limit contact points as much as possible. So we are aware of our contact tracing, so that one worst case scenario effect, a positive effect, doesn't bleed out and affect the entire club. So we'll dive into that a bit more, but a couple big definitions you want to know is a participant for any of our activities. That would be a player, coach, or ref. And a spectator is a parent, guardian, sibling, or fan, or anybody, that is not actively involved in the game or the practice. So this is kind of a general guidance, and it hit on some key points that we'll really dive into. Like we need a COVID officer, we need COVID coordinators. So COVID officer for the club, a coordinator for every one of our teams. Again, we'll reach out to figure out who your team COVID coordinator is. So first thing on your list should be try to identify who's going to be your COVID coordinator. Everybody needs to be updated on these protocols every time they change. And we'll be communicating this with Board of Health and the different bodies that I've already mentioned. The big one, if anybody, coach, member, team member, anybody directly related to the team, involved with the team, contracts COVID-19, all sessions, activities need to be canceled right away. That's, you find out 5 o'clock, you're walking onto the field, turn around and go home, and let us know. Everything needs to be canceled for at least 14 days, but there will be other steps and we'll be in communication. So big thing to know is just shut it down if that worst case scenario happens. And then everybody, all participants, spectators need to be equipped with proper PPE, your masks, your sanitizing products. Unfortunately, but fortunately for us, I think this has been going on a little while, where just the common sense, kind of PPE stuff, I think everybody kind of gets it. So that's really the key here, is just make sure everybody is wearing masks at all times and you're coming equipped with your hand sanitizer and your disinfectant. Scheduled games need to be, and practices need to be 20 feet of space. So that means when it's your time to take the field, go on the field, no earlier. You're not staying later, no kick arounds, no hanging out on the fields, no, none of that. When your time is up, pick up your field, be responsible for your waste in your own space, leave it as clean as possible when you leave. When time's up, time's up. That's really, enjoy the practices and the time you have on the field, but that's it. No extra time, no sneaking on the field for a warm up here or there, or getting on early or any. Really stick to these guidelines as much as possible. When it's your time to take the field, take the field. Same with the parents. Please make sure as you're leaving the field, right, you'll probably be the last one off. Just try to keep the parents moving. Don't let anybody congregate and just, huddle around the fields, the parking lots, any of it. Keep everybody in and out as quickly as possible. The big one here, and we'll get into the whys a little bit later in some of the, exceptions, but the Commonwealth's orders on youth sports capacity for field, only one parent, guardian, or family member is allowed to be a spectator of our events. So there are some exceptions again, but we'll dive into those a little later, but it's really one spectator maximum. So whenever possible, we know it stinks, but again, keeping the kids in mind, it's for the kids. As much as mom and dad wants to go and watch and play, if there's something else that you could be doing or have to do, like if you don't need to be there, you trust your coach, let's try to limit it as much as possible. Everybody, just no sharing of equipment, be responsible for your own waste, try not to use the public benches or facilities, really just kind of keep to yourself, and everybody, again, having your own sanitizer. So the one sort of exception to the one spectator rule per player is if any spectator who's responsible for other minors is not able to have them cared for by others is permitted to be in attendance as a spectator with those children with them at all times. So obviously sometimes it's inevitable that you got to have the family there, but the family stays together in their own space, 6 feet apart at all times. All adults, spectators, coaches, staff, referees, officials are required to wear a face mask at all times and maintain social distance 6 feet or more. All right, that's not going to be perfect. Kids are going to run over to you. It's inevitable, but it's not going to be perfect. The key here is that we're making an honest effort and we're sending little reminders. So we're not scolding kids, not yelling at kids, we're not sitting kids out. It's just reminders. It's just doing your best to be thoughtful about it. And then the capacity limits, we'll dive into a little bit more when we get to the fields, but really simply 25 on your field. That's in between your lines. No more than 25 participants. Players or coaches for practices, referees are included for games. That's within the lines of your field. No more than 25 on that playing field, and no more than 50 people. That's your spectators. No more 50 people, excluding participants, surrounding that playing surface at a time. So that's going to be one of the things the COVID coordinator is going to have to monitor. And you'll kind of know by the eyeball test. And I think, I was able to be at the fields a little bit to see, baseball operating. I think the parents are getting it. Stay in your space as long as, you're, again, sending those gentle reminders and we're not abusing the one spectator rule. We should be fine. But those are kind of the keys, and we'll touch on more of it as we move forward with our field diagrams for you. The big one here is sort of just saying that you need at least 6 feet for your social distancing, 14 feet at all times between playing fields. So again, you'll see it in the practice field configurations and the game diagrams that we have, but 14 feet need to be between fields. And as we mentioned, there needs to be the 20-minute buffer. So get off the field when your time is up. Your COVID coordinator checklist. It's 2 pages we have on this, and we will pull these out, and they will be right on our COVID resource page online, and will be sent to all teams separately. So you'll have them, make sure your COVID coordinator can access these. Essentially, your role is to assist the coach to ensure that you are being compliant with Matthew's soccer return to soccer activities. With ours, they're one and the same. So just that if the COVID coordinator tells you that you need to adjust something for a practice or for your setup for equipment, or adjust as a parent's reminder about a mask, they are the ones that are going to be responsible if something comes up. We're going to be turning to them to say, where were you? Why wasn't this addressed? How did you address it? So they're really in charge of enforcing these things at the team level. So prior to your practice session or game, just again, back to the connection piece, you get to know your players so that you know the difference between a mood or not. You should inquire how they're feeling. If they have a persistent cough, if they're looking under the weather, send them home if they're acting ill. So get to know them so you know the difference between the mood and an illness. And you don't want to do it, but better be safe than sorry. Always, err on the side of caution. Ensure that accurate attendance is kept at all events, again, games and practices. This is for the contact tracing piece. Worst case, somebody tests positive. We want to know who was in the presence, who was, at the practices, who was at the games for them, who was in the close contact with them, so that we can contact those people to let them know that they've been in contact. And again, if that happens, there will be more communication from myself and the Marks on next steps and what we do, but just need to have that attendance. It's something we hope we don't need to use, but it is necessary to have. And again, that's a big one that has impacted our decision making on a lot of what we're able to do this fall. Make sure parents, all parents are 6 feet apart. All adults have their face masks on. So making sure everybody's in their designated areas, and that again will make sense when we get to the field diagrams. Know the capacity limits. Practice is really easy. Again, 25 players on the field. So U12 and under, we should never have an issue with that. So the games, the practices should never be more than 25 players in between your white lines. And again, to be clear, just because maybe you have 15 on your roster and a couple coaches, that does not mean you should be inviting other players to join. You are very much with your teams for this season. You get the opportunities to play your games on the weekend. Though that's really the mixing limit that we're having. Everybody is on their own field space, their own field surface that they're assigned to. So, and then the basics, the hygiene protocols, just really practice good hygiene. And it really boils down to no shared equipment ever. So that includes pennies. We bought extra pennies. So the goal being you can give a penny to each player at the beginning of the year and ask them to bring it to their games. They're responsible for washing it for themselves, to showing up to the game, to practices with it. We also recommend, maybe having the players wear a light shirt to practice and bring a dark shirt along with their penny. And now you can get multiple colors going by asking them to throw on the dark shirt or throw on the penny, but no sharing of equipment. That goes for goalie gloves. If players want to bring their own gloves, that's great. But there's no sharing of equipment, washing hands, sanitizing. And again, kids are going to pick balls up. It's going to happen. They're going to touch equipment they shouldn't. You're not asking them to pick up your cones or to readjust any of your equipment. If they do, just remind them that they shouldn't and give them the sanitizer. Friendly reminders are going to go a long way this year. That's really what we need to keep in mind. All right, so into the fun stuff, the game modifications. And I want to start right from the top. Our attitude to these rules will directly impact the perception and really the overall experience that your players are going to have this fall. I'm very fortunate. The last few months have been tough, but I'm very fortunate to get to work in youth sports for a living. I have a lot of colleagues, have a lot of coach contacts in a lot of different sports, and it's really disheartening when I speak to a coach or a colleague that says we shouldn't play. I wholeheartedly disagree with that, especially at the developmental level, which all of us are very much in. Maybe these rules would be silly again for top leagues, professionals, and in European leagues and MLS. Yeah, this would be silly. It's much different. But a lot of them are developmental rules that if you're getting the ball on the ground and you're finding open space and you're encouraging, your players to connect passes all over the field in front of goal, you should be teaching them to be brave and to play the ball to feet and to be creative and take players on the dribble. This year is very much got to be skill development. And I look at it as, you know, you're going to have to coach your players to play the game the right way. Put the ball on the ground and connect passes. If that's not what you're already doing, these rules are really going to force you to start doing that stuff, right? So there's no heading. That's something that's already been really the case for the last few years. They put that in place, no heading. Shoulder contact is not allowed. So again, that's going to be tough to enforce. There's going to be a lot of whistles because of it. But as coaches, we should be coaching our players to get between the ball and the goal, right? To get goal side, which means you got to work, get behind the ball between the attacking player who has the ball and the goal. And then if they're dribbling at you, you can certainly take the ball off their foot, right? You can make that tackle. We just want no shoulder, because that leads a lot of people pushing and bumping and hands flying and kids falling down and tripping over each other. So you got to coach your kids get behind the ball. Somebody's making a run down the middle on the flank. Somebody from the middle of the field has got to step to that player, and you got to coach your players from the wings to drop into the middle. Right? You're not chasing that player down from behind. You can't slide tackle. So really, those are your coaching points defensively. Get behind the ball and, defend from in front of, between the goal and the ball. For all restarts, players need to maintain 6 feet. Again, the 10 yards is still in effect. 8-10 yards based on your age group, still in effect for the opposing team. And there's no traditional wall. You don't want to set up a wall. The players got to, stay socially distant as much as possible. That does not mean kids are operating in islands by themselves. There's going to be some contact. It's just how can we modify it to avoid just whipping a ball into the box or throwing a dozen kids into the box when they really don't have control of what's going on in there. As coaches, you should be coaching restarts, corner kicks, to come over and support the player in the corner, a quick pass to him, and then we get the game going. An indirect kick, put the ball down, keep the ball on the floor, and connect a short pass to a teammate. Again, the defense has to be 10 yards back by it. You come over a yard away, connect that pass to a teammate, and we start playing. Everything is balls on the ground and connect the pass. So there's no drop ball. Again, that's kind of an obvious one. Again, just trying to keep the distance between players. So this is our kind of coaches guidelines in a nutshell. We've touched on a lot of it. The big one here to point out is just be understanding that some parents, guardians, they may not be quite ready to have their child return to these activities at this point in time. And this is where the communication is going to be key. So if 1 or 2 players aren't showing up the first week or so, really make the extra effort to reach out, to talk to the parents, engage with the parents, get to know what's going on. And it could be just a case that the parent is watching you, right? They might want to see, are you going to follow these protocols? Are you wearing your face mask? Are you setting up your designated bag areas with social distance in mind? Are you following these things? So everybody has different feelings to all that is going on. We don't want to get into that. Our expectation is that all of our coaches are going to do everything within their power to follow these guidelines and make everybody feel as safe as possible while they're with us at all times. And sometimes player might not feel safe and don't want to do it. Parent might not feel safe, don't want to do it. Maybe they're waiting for the next couple of weeks to see if there's other updates or guidance that comes down. Just be in contact and be understanding. You got to follow these protocols. Again, the big one here, all face coverings are now required during play, right? So through July and early of August, that wasn't a mandate. That really came out middle of August. Everybody's got to have face masks on now at all times. Coaches, parents, all adults doing your best to keep your distance whenever possible. And again, friendly reminders go a long way. So it won't be perfect. Just constantly be reminding your players, your parents, everybody. So coaching a training session, kind of getting into the details now of what the training session will look like, what the actual on-field stuff will look like, and just give you some guidance, a little checklist of your own of what you can do to really help make for a smooth fall season. Send an email regarding the date, time, location of your practice session as soon as you get that stuff from us, and we're able to confirm that we in fact do have the space we normally get and can go forward with our plans, right? Ask parents, they need to confirm availability for everything. So track that attendance, keep that attendance log. You never know when you might have to go back and figure out who was at practice last Wednesday, who was at the game last weekend. So again, understand that, you know, everybody is going to be feeling a little differently about that, and just be sympathetic to everybody's concern. Again, the dark and light shirt, the assigning a penny for the season, no shared equipment ever. Create a list of attendance and, you know, use it for contact tracing. We will be pushing out a new app club-wide to all of you, very similar to Team Snap, if anybody has any experience with that in the past. We're going to give it to you this week because practices aren't starting. We don't want to throw too much at you. And it's really essentially, hopefully, will become our hub for planning, communicating, scheduling, all of it. We understand it might just be that extra thing right now that is a bit overwhelming, but I think if you make the point to get up and running with it, all our practice schedules, game schedules, all our communication will flow through there. There's an attendance tracker, so parents can hit yes or no. So it should make your life a lot easier. Obviously, there's a learning curve with all of it, but just keep an eye out for that. If you choose not to use it, great. We'll really start pushing more of that and making that sort of our go-to place for in-season communications and plannings going forward. So just keep an eye out for it. When you arrive to the field for your practice, before you arrive, make sure you have the necessary PPE, your disinfecting, your hand sanitizing, all of it. When you get the chance, you know, spend some time to plan your session. I know we're throwing a lot new and extra at you, so it might not be, you know, night one, week one, where you're really diving into our curriculums and all the resources. Matthews Soccer has, you know, age appropriate training activities, as do we as a club have our own age appropriate training activities. You know, week one might just be setting up your space in your designated area and getting comfortable with the COVID guidelines and sharing those with your players, and then just letting them play some small-sided games and, you know, reminding them of the new rules and trying to coach up some of those new things. But when you have the time, take advantage of our resources online. And again, we'll show you where you can find it all. When you arrive at a practice, ask that all players wait in their car until you get there. Obviously, it's not possible always. You know, multiple kids, you got to drop them off and get to another field or whatever the case may be. But whenever possible, ask that all players wait in the car until the coach can arrive and at least get your equipment area set up. And again, communicate that in the email prior to getting to the field. And start by setting up that area. Minimum 6 feet apart. We actually, you know, got extra markers. They're just flat discs that we want you to use specifically for spacing out. And again, we'll show you in a minute, spacing out at your designated area. Okay, 6 feet apart. When you know, Sarah shows up, she's putting her bag down right on one marker, and every player is doing the same thing. So they're spaced out. When they go over, they go directly to their bag and their marker. Remind and inform players of the new COVID rules. We're doing no throw-ins this season for Nestle. No hands ever should really be used except for our goalies, and reminding goalies when they're in net, you know, after they make it, try to avoid touching their face as much as possible. Sanitize before they jump in goal, sanitize after they're in goal. No punts, keep the ball on the ground, right? This is not the year to just boot it. That should never be said anyways, and this is certainly not the year for putting the ball in the air. No shoulder-to-shoulder contact, get between the ball and the goal, you know, defend from in front of the player. You know, stay in your designated area, no handshakes, no contact of any kind, really. You know, come up with creative ways to clap for each other, to celebrate for each other, whatever the case may be. Still have fun with it. Still celebrate the goals and the good moments, but not with high fives or handshake. At the end of the game, maybe a quick applause to the bench to just say good game, but we're not doing our handshake cleanse for this fall. So diving into our diagrams and our field configuration. So 3rd and 4th grade field configurations, this is sort of what you can expect. And again, there's, we'll highlight for you the space. This year we took, again, the contact tracing and the capacity limits have driven a lot of how we need to organize this season. So each program within Nestle, so each group, we have 4 divisions. There's 3rd and 4th boys, girls, 5th and 6th boys and girls. So each division is going to have a hub, right? Trying to steal something that, you know, has appeared to be working with the professional leagues and their bubbles. It's just a good concept of, you're in this group. This is the group, this is the field, this is the location that all of this group is training at. So that, again, in a worst case scenario, we don't have this bleed out effect of, okay, if we were running an extra clinic and you have 2 players from this Nestle team and 2 from this base team or that Nestle team, and something happens here, now it bleeds out into all of our programs and it shuts everything down. Again, back to the basics. We're able to have practices. We're able to provide a safe environment for our players to reconnect with one another and play the game and get some very much needed physical development, social, emotional connections, again, I think are very much needed for players. So this is the goal. So our hubs, right? So if you are, let's say, U10 boys, for example, and again, this is not to announce any details, just using an example. Your playing surface would be everything. Let's say this is Conroy. Everything on the grass at Conroy would be inside the red. The red would be a track. Surface is all the green space. That big 11v11 field, that's your playing surface. Never be more than 100 participants per that entire playing surface, right? So again, our U10 should never have an issue. There's, you know, 13 players or so on a roster with a couple of coaches. We should be way inside that 100. And then each field highlighted in yellow here is where the 25 per field is your maximum. So 100 for the whole surface on that grass area, right? So if you're Pollard, it's a whole grass space, and then you have Pollard 7v7, 9v9. Those are your fields, 25 max on those fields. So each one of these fields will be marked and will be labeled. When you're assigned a practice night, just to keep using Conroy, right? Conroy, we have the field diagrams right here for you. They're up online. You will be assigned Conroy 1A. It's not enough to just turn up at Conroy and grab whatever space you want. That's again, not acceptable. You need to know, when I get to my practice location, what's the actual field that I'm on and where is my designated equipment area, spaced out from everybody else. All fields need a minimum of 14 feet, right, of space between. So it's not you have right to the middle, right to the half. You gotta really be aware of your spacing. Try to really stay to those corners as much as possible during your training session. All right, so similarly for our U12, same concept, right? In red is your playing surface, in yellow are your playing fields, no more than 25 on each, and you gotta have that 14 feet of space. And the first things, again, you should be doing are setting up your designated areas, right? Those little blue dots are the markers we're giving you, spaced out, 1 bag per dot, right? And that's kind of the tone setting, right, from the beginning, from first practice the season. Don't let this stuff slide. Really put the markers down. Really make sure the players are staying spaced out, because that kind of tone being set, it will be one of those things that will become, I hate saying it, but the new normal, or, you know, the temporary normal of, okay, when I get to the field, you know, I need to make sure my stuff is in my own space. Again, limiting the contact as much as possible. A lot of it, I get, seems extreme, but these are the measures that we have to take to keep ensure that our players are safe and ensure that we can have a season for the entire fall. Last thing we want is people not do this, get reported that a coach isn't following these rules, and we come and talk to you again, and now we need to find a new coach, and that team needs to freeze because you're just not following these guidelines. Something as simple as this space and these markers set up. When I come to the field, it's got to be done. It's got to be organized. This is Junior Academy. This is, very similar for field. We'll get to that tomorrow night for our meeting if you'll be in there. Pretty much all the same rules apply that I've talked about. For your game competitions, right? This for game days, this is kind of the design that we're looking at. So you have your benches, again, on one side, and then spectators, normally we say are only lining the other side of the field to help with social distancing. We will allow spectators to go behind the nets, keeping in mind everybody needs to be a minimum of 6 feet apart, right? So at least 6 feet from that touch line or that end line. So those lines that make up your field, they got to stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart from each other at all times. And if this is your blue team, your spectators are going to line up on your half of that field, and your half is where your bench is. So if you're on this half, these are your spectators. The other team's on this half, those are your spectators, and they need to, keep their distance at all times. You have multiple surface. Some of our field locations, some of our surfaces have multiple fields. Thinking Healy, thinking Pollard. The big ones there, thinking High Rock, where we have the fields going 9v9s going this way. You got to have, again, the player benches are in the middle. We need 14 feet of space between the fields at all times, which all of those fields, all your fields should have, and 6 feet of space between all of our players. That's players on your own team and players on other teams. Need at least 6 feet of space. Might have to stagger them a little bit, where one bench is kind of towards the corner so that the other field, thinking Healy 1, again, Healy's labeled field 1 and field 2. Know the difference between 1 and 2. If you're playing on Healy 1, maybe your bench is really close to the corner so that the team on Healy 2 can use the middle a little bit more. Just be aware of your spacing and do your best. Again, making a good, honest effort with parents, again, always being lined outside of the field. And again, the COVID coordinator is the one that's really responsible for keeping an eye on this layout and the spacing and everybody wearing their masks and following these guidelines. So when you get there, on top of assisting with the coach with warm-ups and all the game day stuff, this is really your top priority, is to make sure all of these things are being done, and just, again, friendly reminders go a long way. So again, this is our junior academy. And I know that was a lot of information. It will be online. We are available to contact at any time as needed. So don't hesitate to reach out and go through it. Just want to spend 2 seconds really showing you our website. Mark Beaumont has done a tremendous job with some help from Miskin and myself, but really making it user-friendly for all of you to access. And you can see right in the front, our Coaches Corner. I send those emails every Monday. If you did not get our Preseason Coaches Corner email, please let us know so we can add you. But Coaches Corner emails send you all the resources. We thought really simple. Find it on the website as Coaches Corner tab. This has everything, right? So it has our curriculums. This is where you can go to get your age-appropriate training exercises. So if you're 5th grade, you can click right on that 5th grade link, and you have your access to all of our training exercises and activities for you guys to take and use week in and week out, as well as plenty of other resources on that Coaches tab. Our philosophies, our development philosophies, our Coaches Toolbox is a big one. So we have our Bays guidebook up from the fall. We will have a Nestle guidebook that really is all the stuff we normally address during this meeting. We'll send that out in an email to all of you for next week. So again, you can kind of look over the normal stuff that we touch upon. It has how to send an intro email, game and practice canceling procedures, ball mastery matrix, your language docs, practice planners, game reflections, anything and everything you can need is there for you. And then our COVID resources is a big one. This is continuously to be worked on, continuously to be updated. Again, there's been even some tweaks we've had to made from yesterday to today. So we'll have all of the relevant information pertaining to the club will be updated here as soon as possible as things change. And I guess the last big one we probably want to touch upon real quick is the field and the field status. you will want to be signed up for both Status Me and Notify Me. That is what we use to notify you if fields are closed due to rain. So all the grass fields were closed this evening. So hopefully you got a notification. You can get a text message or an email sent straight to you. And that's really the easiest way to know what's happening. If there's not an update from Friday night, all the fields are closed, and you don't have a notification saying Saturday morning that fields are open or certain fields are open, the latest update sticks. So this is where you want to go to make sure you're signed up for these two. Needham Parks and Rec run the Notify Me, and we run Status Me. You want to be signed up for both. It's great. It makes your life very, very easy. You could even I would recommend sending all your parents there as well to get them signed up, so that they know. You should notify everybody, again, as a friendly reminder, but getting everybody on here will get us all on the same page. So again, I know that's a lot, but in closing, you know, we're doing all of this extra stuff for our kids. We really believe that they need it more than ever. So please, please, please do your best to make an honest effort to do these things so that we can have a successful season, a safe season, and just a good experience for our players. So with that, I will stop my share and turn it over to Mark Beaumont so that we can go through a little bit of the safe soccer, and he can, you know, really show you on screen what you need to get done so that you can actually be on the field with our players. It's one thing to know the COVID guidelines, but you got to be registered properly with all the organizations so that you can actually take the field with our kids. So thanks, guys. What do you, Mark?
Can you stop your screen share, Matt?
Yeah, that's not me.
Who's screen sharing right now? Oh, Mark Miskin, can you stop your screen share?
I just wanted to show everybody, you know, what's coming up. So Mark will do the safe soccer.
You sound like you're underwater, Mark.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
All right, there we go. My turn. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, as obviously anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the administrator, field scheduler, ref assigner. So while Matt is pretty much your go-to contact for on the field, anything else is basically myself and sometimes Mark Miskin. So you know, rosters, schedules, general administration, stuff like that, and specifically right now registration. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to go through what the registration process is and the different steps. I've actually been meaning to kind of maybe even make a video about this because I feel like it's much easier to show people than it is to write out. And anyone that's been and looked at the instructions will know they're pretty convoluted and pretty cumbersome, and it's not easy to understand what you need to do each season. So I'm going to do a bit of a walkthrough and show you what you either hopefully have done or something you need to do. And then hopefully both for this season you'll be all set, and then future seasons maybe you'll have a better idea as well. So you can find all the info on the coach registration. It's actually in a couple of places. It's under register, become a coach, coach's corner, or you can just hit the red button on the home screen and you'll find this page. So it's at least a two-step process. The first one is pretty straightforward. Hopefully most of you have done that already. I do know there's a few that haven't, probably assistant coaches, maybe some head coaches that haven't registered on Got Sport. Got Sport or Got Soccer as it gets known sometimes. That's what we use, that's our internal registration, which is what we use every year for, you know, players signing up, coaches signing up, referees signing up, and that's how we allocate players to rosters. That's how we build schedules. And obviously you need to be on there, but you're going to want to be on there because we're actually using a new version of that program right now, or that website right now. And all of our schedules and stuff, you'll find that information within your account as it becomes available. So again, hopefully most of you have done it. It's pretty straightforward. You go through here. If you've used the previous version, you'll need to set up a new account first. But again, most people have done it, but there's still a few stragglers. If you can do that ASAP, that would be great. Where it gets more complicated is the safe sport compliance and all that fun stuff. This came in a few years ago, and it seems to get adjusted and changed every year. They seem to use a different system to do it every year. But this is stuff like background checks, queries, everything that we need people to do to make sure we've got, the right people on the field and good people on the field. And it can take up a little bit of time, especially when you first do it. But again, we have to do it. It registers you with the State Association, Mass Youth Soccer. So you're going to use a slightly different registration platform. And once you've done it, we give you a nice printed lanyard that you have to have on the sidelines to show that you're supposed to be there and you're a certified coach with the club. And everyone has to do it. Anyone who's a coach, an assistant coach, if someone's dad wants to help out or mum wants to help out on a random practice night because your regular assistant's not there, they're not able to unless they've been through this. And then, as we said earlier, if you recruit a COVID coordinator from the parents, they will have to do this as well and essentially be a coach for all intents and purposes as registration goes. So I'm going to go through how you do it pretty quick because, again, it's not straightforward. This is, believe it or not, my attempt at simplifying the instructions that Massive Soccer put out. And I know it's still a bit of a mess. So step one, you have to do this annually, right? So Got Sport, you do every season, spring season, fall season, that's a different registration. This you have to do once a year, and it's for the full through spring year. So the current one you need to do is for the fall 2020 to spring 2021 year, and then you're all good until this time next year. So firstly, there's this link here, and you'll get something like this. This is basically just the sign up for it, which will basically, if you've done this before, you should have previous details that you've done it with and logged in with. It may look slightly different because, as I say, they change up the platform every year, it seems like, but you want to reuse the same credentials if you have done it before, because that will pull over your previous data and will avoid you having to do some of the cumbersome steps that you do the first time. Again, a new user would do the same thing, register now, and you would have to set up an account. And that essentially puts you on the system for the next year. And you have to do this piece every single fall through spring year. And that basically adds you for the following year, or for the current year, I should say. Once that's done, I don't know why it's this way, but you then have to go to a different link to then log into that account and find all your content and stuff like that, all the stuff that you need to do. Yours will probably look slightly differently because I have the admin stuff on the back end. So you can see here, we've got 59 people have started doing stuff, not all complete, which out of 200 plus coaches, we have a bit of work to do still. But you want to find your account section. If it loads. All right, and you should see something like this. You need to have a photograph uploaded, just a headshot, no one else. Well, something close to a headshot. Mine's not quite a headshot, but something like that. No hats, no glasses, no carrying kids. I've seen all sorts of ones get sent in there, and it has to just be typical passport photo kind of stuff. Click certificates, and you should see something like this. If you scroll right down, if you've done some of this stuff before, you'll see stuff that you're all set with. A Corrie will last for you approximately 3 years, I believe it is. So if you've got the big check mark says Corrie verified, you are all good. So if you just did this last year, that bit will be done straight away. If you're doing it for the first time, just doing the registration piece that I just went through will automatically put that in action. You don't need to do anything as far as that goes. The bits that you do need to do, there's a safe sport training, which when you do it for the first time, it takes a little while. But then if you've done it before, it should just be a 15-20 minute refresher course. And I'm just going to show you how we find that quickly. So you want to copy the code that's in here. And then follow another link to this site, which is the Safe Sport site itself. You add the access code you just copied, hit save. And then again, if you're a new user, you're going to create an account here as well, another new account. If you're a returning user, you're going to hit sign in. And then that's it. You can see here, I've completed mine, but you'll just basically see, those of you that did it last year, you should see this one all done. And then you should see a refresher course as well. And the refresher will be every single, again, fall through spring year. So this time next year, there'll be refresher number 2. Hopefully that makes sense. That's how we do that. And then the other piece is the concussion certificate. If you did that last year, I believe it's good for 2 years. So it says here, if after June 1, 2019 or later, you're automatically approved. If not, you just have to follow this one. And it's just another training course. I believe that one's maybe about an hour or something like that, maybe a little less. But the difference with that one is you have to then go back and you'll see like an upload button similar to where it says on the driving license, you'll see that, and you have to upload that yourself. Safe Sport pulls over automatically. Concussion you have to do yourself. Don't worry about your driver's license, not needed. It's just in there. So yeah, I think if you do all that stuff, you should be good to go. When it is, I'm going to hand out the lanyards, or I'll be able to print out your lanyards, and you need those to be able to set foot on the field. And if you could try and do this, again, as you can see, we had a lot to do. If you could try and do this ASAP, hopefully within the next week or so, because you'll find out later, or hear later, that we're doing a uniform, like, handout kind of day in a couple of weeks. And ideally, we want to be able to give you the lanyards then. And we're trying to avoid having unnecessary contact with people, and, you know, no more meeting with people than we need to do given the situation. So the more people that can get it done by that weekend, that would be great. Yeah, that's pretty much all set. Again, it looks pretty daunting when you see it on the website, and I know it's not an easy process. So if you have questions, just let me know. All right, I think that's me. Who's next on the agenda? I believe it's Courtney and Andy up next, right?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, guys. I mean, we're mindful of the time. And so first and foremost, just want to echo, thank you so much to all of you. It's not just platitudes. It really doesn't run without all of you volunteering. So thank you so much. And I know some of you, I was sort of begging end of July, early August. And I just thank you so much for jumping in, taking this on, especially in this stranger environment we're all living in and navigating. So thank you so much. And I think Andy and I just wanted to remind you that what you already assume or have heard a bit of is that we're just trying to make this a fun experience for the kids to have some sort of level of social and athletic interaction. And this is not the time to be super fired up about how well your team's going to do. And you know, there are no standings this fall. And we just want to try and support you however we can, but also emphasize that we just want you to try and have as much fun with it as possible for the benefit of not only yourselves, but the kids as well. So please just keep those things in mind. And I hope you guys enjoy it, and really thank you so much for taking it on. So Andy, I don't know what you would like to.
Thanks, Courtney. I would just add a couple things. I've had some questions leading up to this. Just a reminder for newer coaches, 3rd and 4th grade is 7v7, 6 players and a goalie. 5th and 6th grade is 9v9, 8 players and a goalie. And not to steal Mark Beaumont's thunder on the next topic, but for referees, just a reminder, some of these refs for your games are as young as 7th grade, and a number of them have never reffed before. So they're taking on the game of soccer. They want to learn more about it. They're excited about it, but they've also got to incorporate all these new rules as well. So I just urge you to, you know, help them out if they're stuck and, you know, if something happens, someone throws the ball in, be mindful of your tone with them. They're going to be nervous, and educate your parents on the new rules. I know a number of parents have no idea that there's any new guidelines. So if you can help educate them, so at the first game, they're not thoroughly confused why a ref is calling something that they're not used to, that would be helpful. And thank you. And we're here as a resource for, I know it's a lot of stuff tonight, so thank you.
I would just, end in saying, like, the words that come to mind for me is, like, I think as much patience and humility and humor and flexibility we can keep in mind, I think will benefit all of us. And yes, again, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. So yeah, referees bit should be fairly quick. We'll send out pretty more info about some of this as we go as well. So as these guys just alluded to, the rule for referees is basically that other than you can greet them when they turn up, you can say thanks, good job at the end, but during the game, you shouldn't be addressing referees at all. Again, most of you that have coached before, you've probably heard this a million times, but every season we get some reports of, you know, a coach or a parent who's, you know, having a go at the referee, basically, that, you know, that making it known that they're not happy with some of the decisions they're getting, or and that sort of stuff. And it's both coaches and parents, and the parents are the responsibility of the coaches. So if you have parents chirping from your sideline, then we would expect coaches to step in and tell them. And you should also be telling us ahead of the season, so it's not a surprise to anybody. Obviously, again, as the guys have just alluded to, this season will be tougher than ever for the referees. Some of them are reffing for the first time. Some of them didn't referee in the spring, so they probably haven't done a game since last fall. So they're already figuring out the game, and they're doing so along with the new rules they're going to be doing as well. So they need your support more than ever. And again, we're not it's not about, running up scores or, crushing the standings this season. Not that it should be any season, but this season in particular, it's all about everyone having a good experience and playing. So no getting on the referee's case, please. Every game you should have a referee. We had our first course today and there was loads of kids on it. So I'm hopeful that every now and again there is a game where we just don't have enough referees. And if that ever happens, then we ask that coaches can step in or recruit a parent that can step in. Preferably an assistant coach or coach, because again, you guys have done the safe sport training and all that stuff. But I would generally send you an email to let you know ahead of time if I don't have a ref for you. But if you guys can just kind of be flexible and make it work, whatever gets the game going, to do that. And every now and again, a referee will maybe forget, or he's missed an email or something like that, and he may just not turn up. So if that happens, don't abandon the game. Just get the kids playing, and we'll follow up with them afterwards. I think that's pretty much it for referees. And then as I mentioned earlier, Saturday the 12th, we're going to have a distribution of equipment and uniforms. The rule for our equipment generally is if you've coached before, or one of the guys on your coaching team has coached before, you generally won't get a new set of stuff. However, other than the cones and the pennies that we're dishing out this season for COVID reasons, anyone who's brand new and coaching the team on their own, or a pair of coaches who are brand new, should get an equipment bag as well. And you get your lanyards in that as well that I talked about, assuming you do it on time. Everyone who registered everyone who registered before the deadline or before we submitted our uniform order gets a coach's jersey as well. Anyone who submitted after, we may have some extras as well. But there'll be coach's jerseys in there, your lanyards, your team uniform, obviously. But that's all on Saturday, September 12th. And Matt has either sent or will be sending the time frame for everybody.
Yeah, so the girls, guys, we've blocked, trying to space it out, again, because of gathering limitations and all of that. So Nestle girls teams are scheduled between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. and Nestle boys teams between 11 and 1. If you coach multiple teams and there's a different slot for one of the teams, you can, we'll do our best to have both ready for you, so you don't have to come multiple times. But please do your best to try to have somebody from your team come to the DeFazio Pavilion at that time on Saturday, September the 12th. Worst case scenario, we can figure something else out. But again, as Mark alluded to earlier, we're trying to limit contact as much as possible, wherever possible. So just be mindful, and we'll send reminders of those times out as well.
Okay, so I think we've gotten to the end. We'll take on questions now that have been in the chat. Last thing, obviously no fall tournaments. Where Mass Youth isn't even at that stage, so we're not going to entertain any fall tournaments like the Natick tournament or the Nestle Jamboree. First question in the chat, assuming you have the fields you expect to get, will coaches get the nights of practice they asked for? Based off these hubs that we're trying to put together, we'll do our best to get you the nights that you asked for, but we're also going to ask for forgiveness if we can't, and the understanding that we're trying to, try to make these hubs and make it safe for everybody. And so it's going to be based off of what we're going to be able to fill the fields in the times with. With that said, again, as I mentioned earlier, there may be some open space earlier because the high school teams aren't going to be on certain fields. So we might be able to get those fields, but until we get the permits from the Park and Rec Department, we won't know that for sure. Which leads into the next question. When do we think the decision will come on the permits? I was hoping to actually have it today. I'm hoping within the next day. I've chatted with Park and Rec. They know our schedule and what we'd like. So I'm hoping within the next few days that we'll have that. Next question, assuming there won't be clinics this fall, but wanted to confirm. Correct, no clinics this year. Unfortunately, we got to, as Matt has talked about, we got to make sure that teams kind of stay with teams. It would be really hard to track and do the contact tracing that we need to do if we have clinics going on, tryouts going on. So a lot of the things that we thought we were going to be able to do in the fall, we're just not, I mean, in the spring, for the fall, we're just not going to be able to do right now. And we're going to keep trying to figure out what we're going to be able to do, and hopefully move in a good direction from that. Will we also be looking to see if a family member beyond a player and a coach has contracted COVID? Is there a protocol? Again, Matt kind of touched on this. I mean, if a parent knows or a coach knows that they've been in contact, then we need to be notified, so that we might need to get in touch with the Board of Health to, do some contact tracing for the teams and so forth. And depending on how far it's gotten, it will depend on what we might need to do for the program. So, similar to any type of environment that you might reach into, in the outside world, that's, what we're kind of following ourselves. How are we going to keep to 25 participant limit with 15 players on a team? Keep in mind the 25 participant player limit is on the field itself, the playing surface. So, if the roster is 15 players, that if it's a 9v9, then only 9 players will be on the field for both teams. That's 18 players plus a referee. That's 19, and maybe 2 assistant referees. That's 21 people that would be on that playing surface. So the idea is that on an 11v11 field, that would be 22 players and 3 referees. So that is the purpose of the 25 participant limit. It doesn't count the players on the bench and the coaches. And then the spectators are after that, so up to 50 spectators after that. Will the officials be following the MIA rules? No, we're following Mass Ref and the laws of the game. MIA rules are being structured different. They may come together and kind of formulate something very similar, but as of right now, we're following the Mass Youth guidelines and Mass Ref guidelines. How large are the fields for 3rd graders? Where the games generally play? That's going to, again, the fields are 7v7 for 3rd graders. The actual size in my head, I don't have. I think I want to say 40 by 60 yards. But
it's about a quarter of a full field, give or take.
Right.
Maybe a little less.
45
a little less,
by
but
60. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, what we've had in the past, because we're trying to set up these hubs, may not be the same fields that we have had in the past for 7v7 or 9v9s. But it'll be close to that, because generally those are the same fields that we'll be needing to use. We'll be sending out, will the club parents know about the restrictions for mask types? As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be sending out a more extensive, from what Matt showed you, COVID reopening guideline book from the Needham Soccer Club. It will have everything that you need to know for the parents, for the coaches, for the referees, from the club, what the club needs to do. So everything is in that guidebook to help everyone be knowledgeable from everyone's point of view and perspective. The type of masks that we'll need to use are going to be the air loop type masks. They're not the gator or the pull-up or the bandanas. The reason Mass Youth is requiring that type is they don't want something around the neck that could get caught with some incidental contact and possibly choked. So they're keeping to the ear loop, and they have to be on the player at all times unless they've stopped and take a quick breather or something like that. Assuming a negative, two teams train on 11v11 fields to scrimmage. So 2 teams on an 11v11 field, that's, you know, for 9v9 for this group, you could possibly, if, you know, there may be a way for you to do it. You'd have to stick to a guidelines of the, of what you would need to do for participating in a game situation. So, you know, players can't be, you know, mixing benches or anything like that, or mixing one another. Kind of got to keep it separate like you would for a normal game situation. So
Mark, I would strongly discourage it. Again,
I was just going to say that, but
I would strongly discourage it. Again, with the contact tracing, God forbid, you decide to come together that day. Oh, this is a team that's not on our schedule. Let's play a game. And well, that's the team that somebody contracts, and now your season's in jeopardy because you chose to scrimmage with them. Yeah, it's kind of one of the luxuries that we wish we were more comfortable with. Could you do it? Yeah, but should you do it? Probably not. So we'd strongly discourage it. But if you do stick to the guidelines, you're not breaking any rules per se. We just really think that for practices, you should be with your team. And when you get the chance to play the games on the weekends, that's your chance to play the game, to, you know, play against an opponent.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Can we get fields line to show spec? Yes, we're going to be trying to put lines on the fields. We're working with our lining company that lines all our fields each season. And they're actually going to put some spots on 6 feet apart on the fields and everything. And keep in mind, if there are assistant referees, you have to be the parents have to be 6 feet, the coaches have to be 6 feet, the players have to be 6 feet from those assistant referees that are usually running along the sidelines. So keep that in mind, and we're going to try to get those lines on the fields as best we can. And there'll be like little spots along the spectator sideline. Any contingency plans being developed for a potential Triple E? We're hoping we don't run into last year situation. You know, it's been on our minds. We've been keeping our fingers crossed. We hope that we don't have to get to the point that we had last fall. We were in the low risk all season, but we chose to be a little proactive and not have practices during dusk. With the high school not playing, that, like I said earlier, it might open the door for more practices to happen during pre-dusk and all that. So we'll keep that in the back of our minds right now, but hopefully we won't need to deal with that issue. And players take a break, a mask break, when they are on the sideline, take off their mask when not playing. If they need some sort of break to breathe a little better or something, absolutely. If they need a drink, absolutely, out of their own water bottle. You know, absolutely. But for the most part, they need to be, you know, just like being in public, they need to keep those masks on at all times. A red duffel with white straps in the field last fall. Matt, we'll try to get back to you if we know of finding that red nylon duffel. But right now, I don't think we did. But we'll keep an eye out. How do we deal with injuries? Are coaches allowed to come onto the field, have close contact with players? Matt, I'm going to turn this one over to you. But generally, you have to keep your distance and kind of work with the player. Unless it's an emergency situation, you need to rush that player somewhere. But Matt, why don't you take it? Because I know you've.
Yeah, in emergency situations, absolutely. Again, masks always on, sanitize your hands, you know, as much as possible before and after. And this is actually something that came up in the MISA meetings too. And they're sort of making some exceptions for the parent. If the parent is there, you know, encourage them to come over. You know, again, they're the family, so they can be in contact with the son or daughter. So if the parent is there, that's kind of who I would try to turn to and find really quickly. So maybe as you approach the player, did you say, is mom or dad here? Can you point them out? As long as, again, it's not an emergency situation, but they're in a lot of pain and something is serious, then yeah, you try to do what you can to comfort them in the most responsible way possible to the player. And really, in those situations, we really shouldn't be doing too much to try to sort it out ourselves, other than try to keep them calm and try to, you know, call for help. But really, it's okay for this season to turn to mom or dad if, you know, somebody fell and is hurt and they're staying down. You know, can mom or dad run over and talk to them and get them up and help them off the field? But there might be a situation or two where you do need to help the player along. Maybe mom or dad's not there. But again, just try to sanitize your hands before if you can, after, definitely, and keep your masks on at all times. In any emergency situation, we really shouldn't be moving the players or really having much contact with them anyway.
But yeah, definitely, you know, if it's real emergency, you know, call 911 and we'll go from there. Hopefully not. The high school is not playing. High school soccer has not been determined. High school sports, for the most part, have not been determined. Certain sports are of high risk, like ultimate frisbee, can't play. So I have had conversation with Dan Lee, the athletic director at the high school, and he knows that he's probably going to have some open space. So nothing has been determined yet as far as I know high school soccer. Others, you know, field hockey is supposed to be playing, and cross country. The other sports are in high risk, so those situations still need to be determined a little bit. Just to be clear, if the coach is a parent, that counts as the one player, correct. That coach is the parent of that one player. So therefore, the other parent, guardian, would not be able to attend the game. So sorry about that, but that's where we have to, we do need to cut it off there. That will be done on sunset. Get ready and start to affect practice. What?
Mark, that's some of the stuff that you already talked about. It's, you know, we're hoping the sunlight is an issue every fall, and we're hoping through some of the additional availability with the fields and working with the high school that we'll have the ability to get on some of these fields earlier than we have in the past. But it's always a work in progress with the high school since they have the permits for a lot of the same fields up to almost 6 o'clock at night. So we're continuing to work with the high school in the hopes that we can have the ability to get on those fields earlier to address those teams that might run into an issue with sunlight.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was taking the hat literally. So yeah, and you know, unfortunately, it's a traditional situation in the fall with early sunsets. We lose daylight usually around mid to later part of October. So it's partly what we have to deal with not having all our fields lit. So last question. Sue says that coach do not count against the 50 spectator. Correct. Matthew Soccer, the coach. So the coach, the players, and the referees are all considered participants. After that, everyone else is considered a spectator. And that goes.
However, you still cannot have an extra parent there just because you're the coach, right? I think that's what the question is getting.
Correct. So,
so they don't count for the field capacity, but you still, you know, you can't, you still have an extra person.
Right. And that's been discussed with Matthews. We're not figuring that out. That was actually one of the questions on their webinar. So I think that's it. Hope everybody got a lot out of this. Damien, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And thank you, everyone, for your attention. And hopefully we have a great fall season.
Again, you know, repeating what everyone has said tonight, we really appreciate you stepping up to volunteer, appreciate your time, and best of luck in the season. The 3 gentlemen that are here that did most of the talking are a great resource and will continue to be a great resource for you for the rest of the fall season. Andy and Courtney are also great resources. Don't hesitate to ask follow-up questions. If something didn't come up in the call tonight, please reach out because we want you all to feel supported, to have your questions answered so that we're all operating under and providing as safe of an environment as possible for the kids, for the teams, for everyone involved. So thanks again and good luck this fall and everyone stay well.
Thank you, everyone.